60-minute drive for a 60-minute game. After all the miles we've traveled, we're almost there. After all the hours we've worked, one more can make us legends. After all
It is Saturday night, and you know what that means. It is the last word here on Team MBS Media. Of course, I am Jeff Barnes along with Greg Rector. And Greg, an exciting day once again in college football.
A very exciting day because something happened since you weren't 2 years old. Vanderbilt beat Alabama in Nashville. You were 2 years old the last time that happened, Jeff. I was 12.
Dating me already, Greg. I'm telling you.
I
man.
know.
We just got on the air. You want to give it about 10 minutes?
No, because this was huge. Vanderbilt played a masterful game. They only had 3 penalties for 20 yards, 0 turnovers, 0 sacks. They beat the number 1 team in the country, and they beat them soundly. That was an impressive victory for Vanderbilt. I am just thrilled by that result because, you know, Alabama last week, they had Georgia up 28-0. They let that bunch of Bulldogs back into that game last week. And if there was ever a trap, it was set because Vanderbilt was sitting at home watching that game.
Indeed. Well, we're going to talk about the games that happened earlier. We're going to mention you'll see some of the Friday night scores mentioned in the ticker as well. We got a couple of games to touch up on. That's going to be one of our leadoff games. But before we get to that, let's once again run through some of the scores from earlier today. Like I said, an exciting day today, college football, starting with, of course, West Virginia trouncing Oklahoma State. I know you guys love that since you're huge fans of Mike Gundy. By the way, you see in the corner there, we have 24-17 currently going on right now. Washington and Michigan in the fourth. We'll let you know if anything changes there. Getting back to scores from earlier today. Nebraska tops Rutgers. Much anticipated matchup there where we're talking about those two teams, how they're off to a great start this year. Charlotte, give Charlotte a little love as they trounced East Carolina 55-24. Marshall all over App State 52-37. High scoring affair there. UConn tops Temple 29-20. We'll get into the Indiana score a little bit later. Ole Miss, Carolina. You know, Carolina started off hot. They're coming back to earth quickly. Ole Miss trounces them 27-3. Georgia all over Auburn late 31-13. It was a tightly contested contest there. As expected, Ohio State tops Iowa, 35-7. Western Michigan with a tight win over Ball State, 45-42. Tulane UAB, like a high school basketball score, 71-20. Tulane. Army all over Tulsa. How about that one? 49-7. Navy all over Air Force, 34-7. A lot of that.
The two schools are finally both 5-0 for the first time since 1945.
That's correct. And by the way, you guys called this last week. Pitt tops North Carolina 34-24.
Yes, absolutely.
But Virginia tops Boston College. Tight contest there, 24-14. Boston College had a hot start. Wisconsin smashes Purdue 52-6. SMU tops Louisville, previously ranked Louisville, because I'm pretty sure they're falling out of the top 25 after that. 34-27. We'll get into Texas A&M, Missouri. Penn State tops UCLA 27-11, and they're another welcome to the Big Ten. For UCLA, no more Pac-12 pushovers, late night pushovers for those guys.
UCLA is the first school to ever join a conference to lose its first 3 conference games.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's dig into the meat on the table, Greg. With that being said, it's time to talk about the game that you really wanted to dig into. Vanderbilt shocks number one Bama 40-35. And I found it a little premature that they threw them in that one when Texas didn't lose. See, that part, man, they haven't even had a close game. Texas has been trouncing everybody. And for them to go out there and they beat Georgia in the way that they did, and they threw them in number one. I kind of feel this is karma. How about you?
I totally agree with you. I did not have Alabama as the number one team even after they beat Georgia. I still had Texas at number one for the same reasons that you just explained. The Roll Tide, like I said earlier, they blew so much of that second half last week. And Dominic Paiva was just sitting back in his room at Vanderbilt, and he watched that game. He said it. He said it loudly. I watched that game, and he was planning on how to attack this Alabama defense, and boy, did he ever do it. He was just phenomenal.
Absolutely. And you have to really look at how poised he was out there with Bama's pass rush trying to get to him. He kind of did a great he did a great job of really exploiting certain things in their coverage, things that I didn't expect Vanderbilt to do. They didn't have the most stellar individual rushing numbers, but as a team, they were able to move the ball on this Bama defense. And like I said, it was, you look at his numbers, of course, we'll throw those back up there again. There's a guy who had, when you look at it, 300 yards of offense, 252 passing, 56 on the ground. And he did everything in his power, whether it was throwing the football, whether it was running the football, to find a way to move this offense. And when you look at the numbers overall
but the Vandy defense also did the job in the first half of this game.
Absolutely.
They came out and they stoned Alabama. They stoned them. And yes, Milroe is, 310 yards. He had the touchdown. Alabama scores 35 at the end of this game. But really, this game was over in the first quarter when it was 13-0 for Vanderbilt. It was over.
Yeah. Cedric Alexander, 64 yards rushing, 21 carries, only a 3-yard average, but he found the end zone twice. Yeah, along with 13. Newberry actually had a pretty good day, but he only had 7 carries, but 34 yards, didn't find the end zone. Like I said, Pavia got 56 yards rushing. He carried the ball 20 times, didn't find the end zone on the ground, but of course found it through the air. Stovers had the best day of the receivers, 6 catches, 113 yards. But as again, the production was spread out. You talk about 7 different receivers catching the football. About 4 of them had multiple catches. So, of course, it was Sherrill that found the end zone.
Yeah,
but these guys all made plays. 3 of those receivers had 20-plus yard catches. Cedric Alexander had 1 catch just shy of 20 yards. So they found their production as a team through team success, not individual success. Like I said, Pavia's numbers pretty solid, not spectacular, but overall, what we saw in this game was their defense played well in the first half. They started struggling in the second half. Bama caught on to them in the second half.
Yeah.
This is what, and I know, people were talking about Caleb DeBoer. Is he going to be one of the top, 10 coaches, top 5 coaches in college football? I think this game kind of shows some of the weaknesses of his teams, because his Washington teams would have games like this, right? It showed last week, right? They were all over Georgia in the first half. Second half, different game. First half of this game, kind of sleptwalk. Second half, different game. So they at times will fail to put together 4 quarters of solid to good football. And that's part of the problem with him. That's why he has these unexpected losses like this. It's happening in Washington.
Washington last year, though, he had a ton of guys that were injured on that defense.
Yeah.
And that really did hurt them in those games. It really did. I mean, they weren't deep enough to be able to keep teams down at that point, right? Whereas when they were healthy, What did they do to the Oregon Ducks? They smoked them. They
But
smoked them.
they did let Oregon back in the game in the
Yep,
second half. See,
exactly.
and that's one of the things that we talked about with it. It's those games right there when you come out and you blow the doors off somebody in the first half, and then you let them come back in the second half. It's not just that his defense lets up these points, but the offense kind of goes into this lull. Like it was
Yep.
so it was moving. Now all of a sudden they can't find traction. So he's got to get his teams to consistently put together 4 quarters of football. I think that's when he becomes that coach that everybody wants him to be. He's not there yet. I think he's going to be there though.
Parker's Brailsford, the center for Alabama,
Mhm.
man, did he ever show what a talent that guy. He is so talented, and he's not the biggest guy out there. If you want a reminder of who Parker's Brailsford reminds somebody like me of, it's Mr. Stepnoski of the Dallas Cowboys from the Great Wall. He's a smaller center, but man, he blew open the hole that Milroe ran through for that touchdown. I mean, he just destroyed those defenders on that play.
So we got another final win. But sometimes you got to send the villain to kill the villain. Okay, everybody wants to make Mike Norvell a villain this year. FSU falls to 1-6 thanks to Dabo Sweeney, the other villain that people love to hate.
Which is disgusting because Dabo Sweeney now passes Bobby Bowden for the all-time ACC wins. Norvell, you need to be gone. You got to go, buddy. You are out the door. I'm sorry, but you got so lucky with your transfer portal last year. This year, you suck at it again. And Florida State, the Seminoles 1-6. I mean, that is just disgusting after an unbeaten season last year.
We have no update, so that's why we're going to put this graphic back up. In late in the fourth, Washington still leads Michigan, so we'll keep that score up in the corner until anything changes. Let's move on to the next game. Let's talk about Texas A&M,
who just pounded the Missouri Tigers. I mean, Missouri absolutely sucked today.
Yes.
They absolutely sucked on defense, on offense. Everything for them absolutely was terrible.
It was a rough day for Missouri. I mean, they couldn't get any traction throwing the football. Of course, the running game was shut down. And then their defense was just unable to do anything with that Texas A&M offense today. I mean, what can I say? It was the perfect game plan coming to this game for Texas A&M. Connor Weigman, once again, he's a guy who goes out there, throws for 276, doesn't throw any TDs, doesn't throw any INTs either. But they are all over this team, not only throwing the football, but then you count in the running game, they ran for 236 yards as a team.
Yeah.
Okay, as a team. Leading the way was, of course, Le'Veon Moss, 12 carries, 136 yards and 3 TDs. He had the 75-yard run. They just had their way with this Missouri defense. And it's kind of happened to Missouri at times. We've seen plenty of those games. They've been in shootouts, whether it was Kansas State and a few other teams. Their offense has always been able to save the day. Okay, well, there's a day where they needed a defense to really stand on its head and get some stops because the offense just didn't have it today.
27-17 now for the Huskies.
Yes. So we will change that score. They have just pulled ahead by 10 against the defending champion Wolverines, who
had no business being ranked at number 10 either. That school up north does not belong anywhere near this playoff. I'm sorry. Goodbye.
Well, you're going to get your wish right now. I can tell you that. Because plain and simple, they're not getting it done right now, Greg.
Nope.
And I saw it coming into this. I said that they were going to have issues with points. And if their defense couldn't hold people down, this was going to be the result. So this is the new normal for Michigan. And I don't think that you can go around playing like Bo Schembechler in this day and age. You're going to have to score points at a premium. They're not doing it. No, so
exactly. And even though Tuttle went into the game and that opened up things for Donovan Edwards, that's how Michigan got their points on the board. this Michigan team is led by their three massive guys on defense: Will Johnson, the Mason Graham, and the other defensive tackle there, Kent Graham. Those are the big names for Michigan. You could talk about their two running backs. Loveland, you could talk about Loveland as well. It's basically not anywhere near the team that they had last year.
No, they lost a lot of guys, and honestly, I think their coach Sherrone Moore has to find his own identity. You're not Jim Harbaugh, so don't try to be Jim Harbaugh.
Sherrone Moore needs to just go to the NCAA and say, "Give us our penalties now. Give us our penalties," because they deserve to be penalized. And personally, I still say that group last year should have been the ones who got penalized because Harbaugh was responsible for what happened. They shouldn't have been in the national championship game. They should have been turfed. If that's what's coming from the NCAA, those are the kids who should have been turfed for that, not these kids. But again, this is the NCAA where they don't understand any of this, right? They don't get any of that. So now these kids get punished for what happened in the years prior to them.
Well, that game's going to go final shortly. Under a minute left. Once again, Washington leads Michigan 27-17 late in the fourth. Getting back to Missouri's loss today. Both teams are 5-1. What do you think this leaves Missouri right now? Because this is going to make it a very tight race for the conference going forward.
What is this? That I'm not bitter? I am bitter. This is Angry Greg. But anyhow, Missouri, I had, because of course, Monty, who with his show always says early on in the year, who's going to finish where. I had Missouri as one of the top four teams. I did. So this loss throws them out of that. This loss will throw them out of that because the rest of their schedule, I see one other loss coming their way. They needed to go down to Texas A&M and beat the Aggies, and they just didn't get the job done.
So this is going to be interesting. Both of these teams have a lot of tough games left.
Yeah,
they're both 4-1. And to be honest with you, this is going to be one of those games I think Missouri needed more than Texas A&M. Texas A&M lost to Notre Dame. If they would have lost again today, I don't think it hurt them. Missouri needed this because you're already undefeated. You were sitting at 9.
Yeah.
Okay. So as an undefeated team, you couldn't crack the top 6 is a problem when it comes to the playoff because now they're going to drop you. You're most likely going to drop to 16 or 17, which is going to put you out of the playoff altogether. Now it's an uphill fight, and you really can't afford to lose another game to get back into the playoff. So I don't think they're one of those teams that gets into the playoff with 2 losses.
No, they don't. They don't. So because again, they don't have the same cachet in the voters' eyes as an Alabama does or Georgia, etc. Right? They were always considered an outsider as far as being in the SEC goes to begin with. I still don't believe that they belong in there. I don't believe Arkansas belongs in the SEC. I want them back in the old Southwest Conference where they belonged. That's where they belonged. But again, I mentioned the Southwest Conference, which most kids don't even understand. But okay.
No, they wouldn't remember that. There's a couple of generations that wouldn't remember that.
Yeah.
So here's their next 4 games. Okay, and here's how crucial this game was for them. You had to be undefeated at this point, right? Because next week it's UMass, so they're going to beat UMass. I have no doubt they rebound.
No doubt.
Then you turn around, you have Auburn.
Yeah.
Okay. Now Auburn is 2-4, but they're not an easy out. We saw that today. They're not an easy out. Georgia had their hands full with them for 3 quarters. Then you turn around, Hey, guess what? That Bama team that lost to Vanderbilt, you get them a couple of weeks from now, right after you fight it out with Auburn, and then behind that, you have to face Oklahoma. All right, so there's 3 potential losses in the next 4 games. Okay,
I'll say two. I'll say two because there's no way that Oklahoma can do to them what Texas A&M did. There's no way.
I don't think they have to do to them with Texas. They just have to get one more point.
One more point.
Yeah. So you know, if you only score 10 versus A&M, Oklahoma's defense is better than A&M's.
Oh yeah.
You know, so
but again, this is Oklahoma. Because again, I mean, Oklahoma just doesn't impress me that much this year. They just don't.
No, they're not. They're not what they were under Lincoln Riley. They're not what they were.
And they get smoked next week in the Red River Shootout. Do they not? Is that next? That's next week, I believe.
Let me see. I will tell you right now. Oklahoma's next 4 games. Yes, they do have the Red River rivalry next week. They get undefeated Texas and Oklahoma. Now, stranger things have happened in that matchup. You know, we've seen some weird matchups there. Texas jumps out to a big lead, and then they blow it. And Sark is known for doing that. So don't think that it's a given that they go in there and mop the floor with Oklahoma. But then they get South Carolina. We see South Carolina could pull one out here and there. They get Ole Miss, who got back on track today.
Yep.
Then they get a little breather, and they get Maine after that. Okay, wow. So Oklahoma's got a similar schedule. They got that one, little nugget in there, and then the rest is some tough games. So, these teams are getting into the meat of their schedule, and they're starting to face some tougher opponents. They must win games if you want to make the playoff. You drop one that you shouldn't lose, or one that it was a tough game early in the season that you had lost. It comes back to bite you in these situations here. That's why you're fighting Irish. Losing to Northern Illinois was one of those things that hurt them.
You've mentioned this every time you've been on the air with me. Is the Notre Dame lost to North? I already know this. I've already been on here.
I know, but I'm just saying
how much I suffered.
I'm saying for the people watching, this is what happens. I'm making my point that you lose a game that you can ill afford to lose because that's supposed to be a gimme. Now you get into the meat of your schedule and you lose some of the tougher games. You're out of the playoff. These are things that cost you, and we see it happen every year. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. It's time for us to pay a couple bills. We'll be right back with more of the last word right after this. Everybody stay tuned.
Enjoy 40% off site-wide. Vitable takes the guesswork out of feeling good. Get your own personalized daily vitamin pack safely delivered to your doorstep every month. Take their online quiz to find out which vitamins and minerals can support your personal needs based on your own diet and lifestyle. Hashtag only what you need, nothing that you don't. All vitamins are manufactured in Australia at the highest quality standard. Ingredients come in the best form for their absorption by your body. Enjoy 40% off site-wide using code NBS40 at checkout.
No, Greg. Notre Dame isn't the greatest school ever. You have to try at least and be biased. Another crazy college football Saturday is in the books. So let's get back to the show and discuss it all. Thanks for tuning in.
You are watching The Last Word with Team NBS Media. And now back to Joe, Jeff, and Brock.
Well, They got a couple of those, right? So it's Jeff and Greg here in the house. Now, Brock was out on assignment today, so he won't be back in time to make the show tonight. So we know we went final. We'll get that up in a second. We'll leave that score up in the corner for the Wolverine fans that are watching the kind of sulk about.
That's you,
Unfortunately.
Joe Cardozo. That's you.
Yeah, yes. Let the hate flow through you, Kevin Lucas. Let the hate flow through you. There's a lot of that
Mr.
going
Lucas
around.
is a good man because he's a Spartan. He's a Spartan, a Michigan State Spartan, which is a fine university, much nicer than that school in Ann Arbor is. It's just okay, that's it. It's a much nicer place.
So we touched up a little on Mac Brown. Right. So they fall to pit 34-24. Just to say, is it over for Mac? Is this it for Mac this year?
This has to be it. I mean, at his age and all that other sort of stuff, North Carolina just needs to let Mac Brown go. They need to find somebody a whole lot younger who can get kids to stay put in North Carolina. And then you got Duke, who, again, unbeaten. Can they win the ACC?
Indubitably.
Yeah. And that does not go down very well in Chapel Hill. Nothing that puke you ever does goes down very well in Chapel Hill. So Mac Brown, you need to be out of there.
It's interesting. Two things you can count on with Mac Brown as a coach. He would have good defenses. His offenses would score points. North Carolina is scoring points. They're not doing it at a premium, but they're scoring points. Defense, on the other hand, their defense, on the other hand, is abysmal.
It has been abysmal since last season when they started off so well with that front seven, and that front seven, those guys got injured, and oh my God, has it been awful ever since. It has just been horrifying.
Yeah, I know somebody that knows Mac. They go way back, coaching buddies. Sometimes just staying in broadcasting is a much happier thing than going back to the sidelines and fighting for your job every year. Yeah, I think it's time for Mac to just enjoy broadcasting and not have to keep fighting.
He could end up replacing Lee Corso on the College Game Day crowd.
I think he goes back to the
or back to the studio.
I think he goes back to the studio. I think that's what's going to be where he gets to talk about like what we're doing now, recap some games, give a little insight. I don't know if he's great as far as the pregame entertainment portion of it, where you're gonna...
Oh, and I want to point out as well that Ms. Terry, the wife of Nick Saban, has the lead for the season on ESPN College Game Day Picks. She should be on that show a whole lot more than Nick Saban and Pat McAfee. Those two clowns from West Virginia can go back. Bring Ms. Terry back on. She was phenomenal.
So I don't know how many people are giving the Hoosiers shine, but we're going to give them their shine because your Indiana Hoosiers are undefeated right now.
Yes, they are.
Okay. Big win today over Northwestern, 41-24. 6-0 are your Indiana Hoosiers. So
this is something that hasn't happened since the 1950s, kids. 1957 was the last time they were this good.
Now, here's a name that's going to sound familiar to you, Greg. Curtis Rourke.
The younger brother of Nathan Rourke, who has been all over the NFL as a practice squad quarterback, who's now back playing for the BC Lions in the Canadian Football League. But the younger brother, 25 of 33 today for 380 yards, 3 touchdowns. 147.5 quarterback rating today. I'd say that'd be pretty good.
No, he did very well, and he's been playing very well this season.
Yep.
But this is what we're looking. This is what we're talking about programs that are making quiet hires. Now, everybody said, okay, Indiana's going to have they got the right coach. They're going to have a resurgent program. They're resurgent, and people didn't expect it. And that's one of the beautiful things about their program so far. So,
absolutely, and the young receiver that they have there, Surratt, boy, 7 catches, 135 yards. He was phenomenal. And they played in that temporary stadium, which, from what I've been told, is just an awful place to play.
Most temporary stadiums are.
Yeah,
and I get it. We're in this day and age where everybody's got to upgrade their facilities. It's all about, everything's about the entertainment aspect, entertaining the fans that are there, giving them more options, whether it's better food, whether it's more suites, so you get more of those people that want to sit in the suites and watch the game and and do all of the extra stuff. The LED boards, everything.
Yep. Everything.
Right. You've got to upgrade the experience if you want people to come to your stadium, watch your games, and spend the money. So I get it. And Northwestern, you would hope that their program would be getting better. We know about the issues they've had the last couple of years. But yeah, but I'm going to say this. 6-0. They're ranked 23rd coming into today.
They're going to be ranked a whole lot higher.
Are they?
I think so, because they are playing better football on both sides of the football than guess who is? The number 3 Ohio State Buckeyes. The Ohio State Buckeyes today absolutely, totally sucked in the first half of that game. It was awful. Absolutely horrible. And they got to go out to Oregon next week.
They do. That's going to be a great game.
Yep.
See, what bothers me about that is if they're going to be put up so high, then why were they at 5-0 sitting at 23?
Because they're Indiana. They're not a known football school. They're a basketball school. It's the typical thought process that most people have about these types of schools. Duke isn't even ranked that high because, again, they're not known as a football school. They are a basketball school.
See, this is why you need football people doing the rankings.
Exactly.
And because this is why it doesn't make sense. Yes, there are better teams that probably have one loss, but they're not playing better right now.
Nope.
So I can tell you teams that are in the teens that aren't better than this team right now. Why are they ranked 23rd? They at least put them in the teens where if you feel they're not that good.
I had Indiana as my 17th team this week.
Yeah,
17.
And that's more than fair. But 23 out of 25.
Yeah.
And I said the same thing about, a few other schools. We said Missouri, 9 up until today, they were undefeated. 9. Undefeated.
Yep.
9. Georgia is still ranked higher than that. Now, they weren't better than Georgia. So I ain't going to say they deserve to be higher than Georgia. But, geez, 9? So, yeah, there's a lot of things about the rankings that drive me haywire, and this is one of them. Just a score update, by the way, for those that are watching and curious. Florida just knocked off UCF. Little revenge for the Gators. 24-13. It was a 24-3 lead for the Gators at the half. So they held on. Right. So Billy Napier's 3-2.
He does not get to keep his job. He does not get to keep that job. This is Gainesville cannot have Napier return. They just can't. And look, I know what you're gonna say. But I mean, it's just no.
Okay, so we're gonna look at this. Hang on one second here. Okay, so 3-2 right now.
Yep.
Next week at Tennessee, then
They'll
Kentucky.
lose.
Kentucky comes to Gainesville, at Georgia, at Texas.
Yep.
LSU comes to Gainesville. Ole Miss comes to Gainesville, and did he finish with Florida State?
They got one more win to go. Florida State.
So
a 4-8 team for the Florida Gators, and Billy Napier should not keep his job.
Tennessee is 4-0. They're number 4. First of all, I don't agree with them being number 4, but they're number 4.
No, they don't.
They get to host Florida next week.
Yep.
I believe they'll beat Florida because
it's not in Gainesville. The game is not in Gainesville this year and that curse is well known.
Kentucky, on the other hand, is a winnable game. Georgia, not a winnable game. Texas, not a winnable game. LSU, on the other hand, is known to give you that mulligan. So that's a possibility. Ole Miss, known to give you a mulligan. That's a possibility.
Well,
then Florida State, well, yeah, if they don't beat Florida State, they're really in trouble. Then he's fired at that point. But he's got 3 wins. He could possibly sneak into a bowl game with 6 wins with this schedule.
So
if that happens, does he get fired?
I still say he needs to go. He needs to go. Because again, they don't have Florida has never had quarterbacks. I don't care about Tim Tebow. That guy was just a total clown. But Florida and quarterbacks just has never gone hand in hand. And in this era, without getting a quarterback, your school is dead. Your school is dead. The Arkansas Razorbacks, by the way, are trailing 14-13 with 3:10 left on the clock. They have the football, and it's only 14-13 for Tennessee. The Arkansas Razorbacks are on the 45-yard line.
So we're talking about
we're talking
Tennessee,
about number 4. We're talking about number 4.
Just sneaking by Arkansas right now with a chance
they could lose. They could lose there,
right? And
which would be, I mean, I would be all, if I was back home in Little Rock right now, I'd be War Pig Suey all day, all night, because Tennessee usually comes in and thumps Arkansas.
If they win tonight, they hold on and win tonight, they are on upset alert next week for Florida.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that because, they're just sneaking by tonight. They're playing it. They haven't exactly been wowing anybody. I don't understand why they're 4. But
I think it's because of the defense much more than the offense. And the Tennessee defense has been playing damn good football.
They are. Florida is just finding ways to score enough to win.
Yep.
Now they jumped out big tonight, and they were able to hold on. And I said this before, Gus Malzahn, very good coach, but when it comes to his offense, I don't think it's good enough anymore compared to what you're seeing from most teams to be competitive at the level he wants to be at. I don't think he's going to win a Big 12 title with his offense. I think he needs an offensive coordinator to come in and take over the reins.
That's right. He needs to give up the control of calling the game to a new OC. That is his biggest problem. Because again, last week against Colorado, you did get the football to actually go on the ground. You got Harvey going and all that jazz, but no, you still needed the passing game, and it wasn't there. It was not there.
No. And honestly, it hasn't been there. Even when he had Gabriel, and he moved on from him. And John Reese Plumlee was a good quarterback. Made a lot more plays with his legs, extending plays, than he did from the pocket, just throwing. They had a lot of quick game stuff. They had a pretty good running game with Bowser. I don't see that. Right? I don't see that this year. Okay.
No.
So they could, when you talk about getting back to Florida, the way Tennessee's playing, don't know.
I don't see Florida's offense being able to put up against the Tennessee defense.
I fully expect Tennessee to win that game. I tell you why it's going to be closer than it should be. Graham Mertz is not playing 4 quarters. They're splitting time with him and Lagway. Best thing for Graham Mertz. He's looked a lot better now because teams have to prepare for 2 quarterbacks.
Yep.
2 totally different styles.
And that Lagway kid is a good rookie freshman quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He is a good quarterback.
Yeah. So, Greg, it's that time of the show. It's time for the statement. Gunny, who do you believe made the statement today in college football?
Ashton Jeanty, the running back from Boise State. I don't care what Shedeur Sanders does, what Travis Hunter does, or any of these other quarterbacks this year. Ashton Jeanty is the Heisman leader. He had 186 yards, 3 touchdowns today. So that puts him at 1,063 rushing yards already in just 5 games, kids. That is better than Barry Sanders. It's better than Barry Sanders. Yes, he plays for Boise State, but he has been so phenomenal on the ground. It is not even funny. He didn't come out in the second half. He did not touch the football in the second half. That was in one half of football that he put up the 186 yards today.
I'll tell you what I believe, Greg. I believe the statement was made by not all, but most of the traditional Big Ten schools. Today, we saw a lot of those matchups with the Pac-10 converts that came over.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, other than, as you see on the screen, Michigan, most of them took the L today. Right? So, kudos to Penn State for going out there and handling UCLA. Kudos to I lost them, but okay, where are we? And Minnesota for handling USC.
Yep,
an underdog, right? And Oregon did win versus Michigan State, and we saw Washington win. But for the most part, the 2 powerhouse schools that came over, Washington, Oregon, both won against traditional Big Ten opponents. The powerhouse schools.
Razorbacks just took the lead.
And then you turn around and a so-called powerhouse school in the Pac-12, USC, goes down to a mediocre program in the Big Ten in Minnesota.
Yep.
They stood on business today. We are the Big Ten. Even our mid-level schools are good here. Not like the Pac-12 when you got to the mid-level schools who would get beat by 30 by some of the top-tier teams in other conferences and come back to their own and get beat some more. So kudos to Big Ten schools for standing on business today. You didn't all win, but you showed them that you're just not coming in here and going to have cakewalks. Every week going to be a fight in the Big Ten.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's the statement to me is, hey, yeah, you came into the Big Ten. You may be big bad Oregon. You may be Washington. But you're going to have a fight. USC, hey, you can fight on back on the West Coast with this loss. Okay? That is Big Ten football. That's one of the reasons why that conference is so good. I hate that it gets put behind the SEC because the SEC is that top-heavy conference. Okay, once you get past that top group of schools, the rest of the programs in there are mediocre.
Well,
so
you know what? The SEC schools that have always been this great level of guys in the whole BCS and the playoff era and all this other jazz. They're just not as good as they were. They're just not as good as they were. And that includes Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, who are now losing. They just aren't as good as they once were. When Vanderbilt can come in and beat you the way that they did today,
Mm-hmm.
you look at the size of a Vanderbilt University compared to Alabama from student body alone. I mean, this is a small private school. It's the only private school in the SEC.
Just to update, Miami and Cal kicked off a little while ago. Both tied at 7 late in the first quarter. Miami starting off with another dogfight. Now it may get out of hand later, like it did with USF, but they kind of escaped last week with that last second win. But yeah, Cal is not going away. Also talking about Kansas, Arizona State, ASU up 28-24.
Yep.
In the fourth quarter. Hawaii trailing San Diego State 27-24 in the fourth quarter. So a lot of late night games. We just saw Arizona, Texas Tech just kicked off. So yeah, we got a lot going on.
Oh yeah.
We got a lot going on in college football. Next week, let's look ahead to some of the matchups next week, Greg. All right. So we got some midweek games this week coming up.
Yes, we do.
So FIU at Liberty on Tuesday night. New Mexico State at Jacksonville State on Wednesday. Thursday, 3 games. Coastal Carolina at James Madison.
And did James Madison not lose today?
They did. They're 4-1.
Yep.
They did. They lost their first game. Middle Tennessee at La Tech, battle of the 1-win teams. And winless UTEP travels to Western Kentucky to take on the Hilltoppers. On Friday night, you're going to have Memphis come into USF. I will not be in attendance for that one, although I believe I did select it on my schedule. I thought it was the 12th, but I guess because they may be moving certain games around. Actually, no, I'm not scheduled to go there next week. I'm scheduled to go to Orlando to UCF.
Yeah, UCF, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'm supposed to be at UCF next week. Okay. Got my schools mixed up there. Yes, Cincinnati, UCF Saturday. Yes. Yeah. Other Friday night games, Northwestern Maryland, UNLV, Utah State, Utah at Arizona State.
Yep.
Then the Saturday games kick off. So Bama, they'll get their chance to host South Carolina in a rebound game. Do you think that happens?
Yeah, it's Grayson McCall is out. He's gone. That's horrifying today. But South Carolina, they're not going to go down to Tuscaloosa and get a win. No.
So Washington goes from one defensive team to another. They get to go to Iowa to take on the Hawkeyes on Saturday.
And the Hawkeyes, as I said last week, they put up a hell of a good defense in the first half, but in the second half, I mean, Ohio State.
You can't score points, it breaks you.
Yeah. And again, they just, there's not enough offense there. I feel bad for Lachey, the tight end there this year. He's going to be another great pro, folks. Just a little reminder here. Iowa produces tight ends.
Red River rivalry next week. Texas at Oklahoma.
Quinn Ewers gets injured again. Arch Manning comes in and destroys the Sooners.
A bowl matchup rematch coming up. Penn State travels to USC. Fight On will host Happy Valley.
Yeah, and Fight On, you're going to get the same treatment that UCLA got today because that Penn State defense is electric. They are just electric. Yeah, they're the real deal.
Speaking of rivalries, a couple of these matchups in the last few times have ended up in upsets for the Irish. Will they be happy when Stanford comes a calling next week?
Well, yeah, because they're not going out to the farm. I tell you, you go out to that farm and weird stuff happens to people. It's everybody who goes to the farm.
So yes, trying to see. Big matchup in the Big Ten. Battle of undefeateds.
Yep.
In Eugene, the Ohio State Buckeyes head out to Oregon.
This could be an absolute dogfight, or Oregon smokes the Buckeyes. I just don't know how Ohio State is going to travel. Going to Eugene is not a fun place to go to.
No.
It is not fun. You're going to be dealing with a couple. You're going to deal with Dylan Gabriel, who's a very good quarterback. Your defense, Ohio State, yeah, you've done pretty well, but Evan Stewart is a hell of a good wide receiver. But boy, can Oregon's defense hold down Judkins and Henderson?
Very good question. We'll be on the air after this game kicks off next week. Kansas State goes to Colorado. Battle of 4-on-1 teams. Big matchup there.
And Colorado goes down. I'm sorry, Prime. Your little boy Shador and his buddy Travis Hunter, they're about to meet their maker. Kansas State, like I said, that game against BYU was all fixable mistakes. They came out last week and they showed that they put in the work. And if you don't think that they're not coming to Colorado to put a beat down on you, you're sadly mistaken.
Yeah, I think that's the most intriguing matchups we got next week. So, just to recap the current games that are going on, it looks like Tennessee is about to fall.
There's 6 seconds left.
No, wait, no. They're in the red zone. They're at the 20,
Yep.
Arkansas 20. So there's 6 seconds left. So it's got to be a final play for them. Kansas has taken lead on Arizona State with 2 minutes left. San Diego State is holding on. They have the ball. First and 10 with a minute 12 remaining with a 3-point lead over Hawaii.
Oh, Duke!
How about this?
I forgot Duke lost today. I forgot Georgia Tech came in and beat Duke today. That's right.
Yeah. There you go. And how about this? It is the Cal Golden Bears up 14-7 on the U.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Dixon has a defense that has leads the league in interceptions with 10 this year. People don't understand that these programs that aren't as well known as every other big name school like USC and UCLA are. Cal and Stanford, they may not be as successful as organizations, but man, they have some real good players.
No score yet with Texas Tech and Arizona. Arizona has the ball deep in their own end. So that's going to be a while before anybody finds the end zone.
Woo! Big Suey! They just beat the Volunteers.
All right, so Tennessee goes down.
Yep, 19-14. I am in utter shock. As a former Arkansan, I'm in utter shock. The first half of this game, Arkansas had the ball for 48 plays. 48 plays. Tennessee's defense was exhausted at halftime.
You know, I don't read Arkansas accent when you speak, Craig. I still hear Canada. You know, I can hear Canada in there.
I'm still up here. When I go down south, then the whole accent comes Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, because you say you still say it right, Arkansas, but Arkansas people from Arkansas don't say Arkansas; they go Arkansas. They throw the R sound in
They
there.
they have the they have
Arkansas.
yeah
You
they
know?
have that little Boston feel
Yeah,
to when they say the state's name, but it's
yes,
Arkansas.
they had that R sound. They have that's the one Southern accent. That's one of those ones you could pick out. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's like the Cajuns. You can tell a Cajun accent from anywhere else. You know.
Well, that's where most of my South comes from is
Yeah.
having the Cajun blood in me. I do have plenty of that.
Oh yeah.
But holy mackerel. The Fayetteville, the stadium is just loaded with fans right now, and yeah, they are going crazy.
They should be. They
Yep.
just knocked off the quote unquote number 4 team in the nation.
Yep.
Okay. So yes, kudos to Arkansas. And right now, Jerry's having a shot of a bourbon. Yeah, for his
Oh Lord.
Razorbacks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, don't worry, Greg. We'll talk NFL in the morning. That's the morning stuff. Right now we're talking
Well, yeah,
college.
but I've already written my article, and I said it was going to be a very low-scoring game. I've got Brandon Aubrey winning it for the Cowboys at the very end, 17-14, because
See, you're giving predictions and the spoilers away now. You don't want to do that.
well, but you already knew this because I'd written the article. It was already there. It's already there. But yeah, I mean, and I really hope that the Cowboys do actually win that game tomorrow. I do, but because next week is going to be an ugly game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're definitely limping into your bye.
Yeah. No
Alright.
no Micah, no DeMarcus Lawrence. Yeah, not pretty at all. Deron Bland won't be back until week 6 either, and oh yeah, it's horrible.
All right. So it looks like, well, they're at commercial right now, but yes, Kansas is up 31-28 on Arizona State. 2 minutes left there. San Diego State has the ball. Well, they're about to give it away. 4th and 12. They're up by 3 over Hawaii with 51 seconds left, holding on for dear life. Miami has the ball now, trying to answer Cal, and they're in the second quarter. So,
Yep.
Before we go, Greg, next week, by hook or by crook, depending on how much traffic I run into, should see you here next week. Hopefully we'll have Brock in the house.
I did miss Brock because after last night's UNLV loss, which that game was decided by those officials yet again. And we've talked about this. It's going to happen. UNLV though lost that game. It was horrible. It was, but it happens. So the Running Rebels are no longer unbeaten.
They're no longer unbeaten, and when it comes to officiating, I'm of course I get frustrated by it, but at the end of the day, I'm numb to it, and I'm numb to it because it's never going to change. They're just not going to address the problem. You have bad officials on every level.
The Tampa Bay Atlanta game is a perfect example. Bucky Irving was face masked,
they missed it.
They completely missed that.
Yeah.
I saw it. You saw it.
Yeah.
What? And I'm old with glasses on, and I saw the face mask.
Greg, I'm going to tell you a story from just Thursday night.
Okay.
All right. I'm out there on the sideline.
Yep.
I'm watching our running back break through the hole, and he breaks away. He's being chased by one defender inside the 20, Defender reaches inside the back of his collar, pulls twice, then finally reaches around with the other hand, pulls him down before he scores. Everybody's screaming horse collar.
Yep.
Referee on my sideline runs by. That's not a horse collar. None of that was a horse collar.
It isn't?
No, him reaching inside the collar of the jersey, which is why they came up with the name horse collar.
Horse collar.
Inside the collar. Yeah. Okay, right? Twice, because he reached and it slipped off the first time, and then he did it again. Okay, not a horse collar. When they had the ball, actually no, we had the ball again. Another running back has the ball, goes through the hole. Kid grabs him by the side of the collar and around the side and pulls him down from behind. Flag flies for a horse collar. And I go, now the one that was a horse collar didn't get called. The one that wasn't a horse collar got called. Okay. And I go to college games and I see the same horrible calls. I go to turn on NFL games. I see the same horrible calls. It's bad at all levels. And the reason why it's bad at all levels is no accountability. You don't fire officials. They just work every week. Only punishment you have is that you warn them and say, we want you to get better and we want to retrain you. But who's training them? Are the guys that can't make calls anyway. We see it in the NFL every week where we watch the games. And you got the guy in the booth who's a retired official who can't even tell you what the call is.
Mike Pereira and all these other old goats who can't determine anything.
They were bad when they were the ones on the field. And now they're up there trying to tell you what a good and bad call is. And half the time they don't agree with the call on the field. It's that bad. It's that bad. So it is, like I said, it's at every level. Bad coaches get fired. Bad players get cut. Bad officials work every week. That's why officiating is so bad.
Exactly.
Until you get to the point where you get rid of bad officials and you make an example, say, hey, if you don't clean up your act, you're next.
Yep.
And you have to learn the game of football, not just, say I read a rule book and I can tell you what the rules are, and then you can't tell me what the rule is.
The only good
you call it differently from series to series.
I've seen out an official in the NFL this year was that guy that kept up with Justin Jefferson on that 97-yard touchdown. Yeah. That was the only good thing I've seen from an official. That's it. Because the rest of the time they're a joke. They are an absolute joke.
And mind you, when I saw that horse collar inside the 10-yard line, I'm standing at the 25. The official that missed it, telling me that it wasn't a horse collar, was still running down from the 40 and 30 yard line. By the time I turned around to argue with him that they should have been calling a horse collar, which means you're 50 yards away from the play. There's no way you could tell that's a horse collar. So why didn't you move your big butt down there? Okay,
his butt is too big to keep up with these kids.
Yeah, so that's exactly what it is.
That's a big problem. That's a huge problem.
Yeah. So it's once again, I just every week I try not to lose my stuff in the coach's box. Then I sit in, whether I'm in the press box or here with the college games, trying not to lose my stuff. And then I do the same thing on Sunday as we go through those games, and not to lose my stuff with some of the calls that I see. It is what it is. They get paid more than me and many other coaches. I can't say nothing.
The Detroit-Dallas game last year, where you and I absolutely went off with Ashmere that next morning. I mean, we were just livid. What was that tripping penalty? There was no tripping penalty against the Cowboys. So all of that other stuff that happened should never have happened with Detroit in the first place, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, these officials are just stupid.
Well, there should have been no touchdown when Jahmyr Gibbs, when Marquise Bell got basically grabbed by the throat.
Grabbed by the throat
in the hole, right? Yeah. How do you let the guy grab him by the throat in the hole? I mean,
it was so obvious. It was so obvious.
But once again, like I said, I digress. Bad officiating is there every game. It's not exclusive to one team. It's every game I turn on. I see bad calls, and I just go, these guys get paid.
Oh, no, I've seen two well officiated games this year.
Oh yeah, you've seen more than me.
Yeah, Washington beating Michigan, and Michigan losing that first game as well that they lost. That great officiating both times. Great. That's it.
Anytime I see a guy throw a flag 20 seconds after the play, and
Oh,
tells me he'll know what he's calling, because
yeah,
if you didn't
yep,
see it, then don't call it. If you saw
exactly.
it, then that flag should have been thrown a long time ago. I hate those guys. The play's ending, and all of a sudden, here's the flag coming in. And if it's not a personal foul after the play, if you're calling a hold when the ball carrier is on the ground, or
Yep.
the ones I really hate, or when they call a hold on a guy who makes the the tackle for a negative play. How is he holding him if he made the tackle for a negative? I mean, you know what? I digress. We can go all night with this.
Well, exactly. I mean, there was a kid tossed down today who ended up getting a holding call against him because, I mean, he literally went down on his back.
Yeah.
Literally went down on his back. And this is a right guard. And of course, the defensive player comes over at the top of him, and they called the kid who goes down on his back for holding.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What? No, that's not a hold. He just got his ass kicked, and this guy trips over him, and and the right guard gets called for holding. It's totally bizarre.
That reminds me of a dad joke, and I won't say it on the air. So, with that being said, we're getting to the point of the show where dad jokes are coming on. It's time to go. All right. But next week, guys, we'll be back once again with the last word, with less officiating rants from me and Greg. Make sure you tune in again, 10:30 next week. Thanks for watching. We'll be back.